Sorry about that. I think a lot of crying recently is why that shirt looked gross. I'm sorry. Which happens to me sometimes. And when I get depressed, my eyes get so red and it looks like. My thing is, my secret call out is, I'm just stoned on weed. But yeah, I was like thinking about, they say cannabis help veterans of PTSD, and I have somehow like vibes of that. But like, just put on your glasses and vibe that you're got the weed in you. Anyway, sorry to be so melancholic, but it's the middle of winter. It sucks. So, he was imprisoned in the Bastille for one of his satires and spent 3 years in exile in England. Well, in England, he did a very un-French thing. He read English. And Voltaire had already read Descartes and Spinoza. He brought together Descartes' concept of a reasoning free society, mixed it with the pantheistic theology of Spinoza, and then synthesized these new ideas with the mechanical physics of Newton and the toleration and consequent mistrust of dogmatism he found in Locke. Voltaire added a garden, and the Enlightenment leapt through time. I don't know what you're talking about. I have read Spinoza before, but it's weird. It's like these books where I was thinking about this a lot. They call it poetry concrete, where it's like somehow just the shape of the paragraph is important, and you're like, why is that important? But the whole thing is, it goes back to the very start of the very first like book presses and all that stuff. And then I was thinking about the history of electronic music, and I'm like, dude, it's so old. It's now 120 years old, and you're like, what? Or something 110 years old? But the thing is, they would call it music concrete instead of poetry concrete, and it would be like, because you see these sounds, you're like, what? How is this interesting? But I was thinking about it, somehow the waveform itself in synthesis, that just making any kind of augmentation to it in an electronic or whatever, I don't know, Patrick knows about this more, that was like the very start of music. So it's like, what is this? Let's share it. It's like I said, it's this era of sciences where politicians were like just beyond distrusted. They were fucking killed. Like, it was like anybody who was ruling French society, you know, they all fit the bitter end, and the French, freaking go crazy. And it's a thing that they still kind of do, not go crazy, but they riot or whatever. I'm too polite of a person. But yeah, similarly, maybe this is why it's always like, this is the most boring thing to learn, but we'll see. So he added a garden, and in the Enlightenment leapt through time. And similarly, check this out, the way that he's making the, what's this? He's using extra spaces. The Enlightenment leapt through time. So yeah, like I said, is a reference to poetry concrete. Poetry concrete. But it's like, what do you do? I think there's like a classic one is like, you make a poem about a mouse or a cat, and then you make the paragraph kind of like look, the poem, you've sectioned the paragraph, edit it so it looks like a cat. You know what I'm saying? That's like a classic, or a mouse or some shit like that. And sometimes I'm like, is this just like crazy spy? You know what I'm saying? What is it? Why would they do? Like, why would Spinoza write these books that were like these quadrants? And I think maybe it is like a little bit of like encoding. What is it, right? Cryptology. But regardless, yeah. So in the coffee stall, according to Leaner, something Leaner. Classic beep. Sorry to say, be so vulgar, but I have that joke about call up this number, talk shit. Anyway, so classic dudes, or no, it's classic. It's 2 ladies, 3 ladies, 4 ladies, and like 3 guys. Actually, more ladies than men. They got their powder wigs on. It says La Poudre Charmine. The coffee stall. It doesn't look like a stall. It looks like some like big ass like bar. Okay, so Voltaire was evidently a fairly disagreeable man. And Rousseau found him so, and Rousseau himself was so no personable companion, or he, okay, Voltaire was fairly disagreeable, and Rousseau found him so, and so himself was no personal companion. When Rousseau was a young man, he sent the elder philosopher a copy of his Discourse on Inequality, and Voltaire had answered him, "One longs, on reading your book, to walk on all fours." That's brutal. Rousseau, for his part, as a mature philosopher, wrote to Voltaire, and after complaining Voltaire for his genius, or complimenting Voltaire for his genius, and expressing his love for his writings, told him that nonetheless he hated him personally. Okay, so anyways, both Voltaire and Rousseau frequented the Café Praco in Paris, as did Diderot and another coffee lover, Benjamin Franklin. So this is a throwback. This is literally going into Throwback Thursday territory. I was gonna say something. Oh yeah, someone laughing about on Twitter. Some people are like, "I met my online friend, and I hate this bitch now." But I liked her online. So silly. Sorry to say the word, but yeah, I'm silly, man. Oh, as more and more accounts of shamanism began appearing in the reports of travelers and explorers, Voltaire, like most Enlightenment thinkers, dismissed the phenomenon as mere trickery, foisted upon simple-minded people by posturing charlatans. And Voltaire saw nothing in the nature of inspiration that might require any transcendence of reason, and the reported use of mind-altering plants by shamans was only provoked the originality of the whole endeavor. And this is the what's it called? The italics. Magan. I don't know if he's saying like the shaman in himself is like mocking God, or they, they obviously they probably think that at that time, but part of the thing about what shamanism is, like by technical French, whatever definition, or that's not by word, but it's like it is like the madman, like that somehow can heal, and it's not a big thing in European societies, but in like whatever there's in Indo-Europe and like Siberia, there's kind of shamans, or like maybe when they crowned them in the New World they thought it too, but yeah, it was like similarly to we talk about classes in regards to like the pyramids in Mexico or whatever. They had like 4 distinct classes in the Aztecs or the Mayans. It was like a shamanism to like an enlightened thinker is just balderdash. You know what I'm saying? Okay, so Voltaire drank 72 cups of coffee a day, and he used his lover's back as a writing desk. Oh, god damn. Hell yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah, no, so this is like he tries to like find poetically, or in because there's one thing in anthropology, it's like you're studying another culture, but he tries to find like the poetic, like the character of like it really is like changing the world or something, even in a conceptualized way or something. I don't know. Like I said, he has got the shade of poison path. Is how he breaks down all the madness in the world or something. Okay, so Voltaire drank 72 cups of coffee a day. He's used his lover's back as a writing desk. That's fucking great. Okay, so by 1700, there were 3,000 coffee houses in London, and the coffee house provided an entirely different atmosphere from the tavern or pub. Gentlemanly rules of behavior were posted, and coffee houses were democratic enclaves where noblemen got no special seats. They were placed to discuss new ideas to match the novelty of the beverage. The coffee house was also a place to discuss political ideas. One of the causes of their episodic suppression everywhere, from Constantinople to London. What was I going to say? Oh, that's why they're suppressed. And the coffee house was also a mail preserve and a place to discuss business. One of the first London coffee houses was Lloyd's, the beginning of Lloyd's of London. Another coffee house grew to become the English Stock Exchange. Others evolved into trading companies, brokerages, and some England's largest banks. The rest became English clubs. Man, so if nobody's really apt to the history of rave culture, though, god damn, I was thinking about why is England so fucking good at raving. Electronic music is silly. It's like the thing about Northern Soul music. What, like soul? Northern Soul is like this kind of like, whatever, kind of like disco, but more soul. Before it preceded electronic music, and that's a big thing. What else? Like the Indian, like psytrance stuff, all the, or of course the Bezo too, but I'm not gonna get into that. This is another chapter. Through the early researchers noted that coffee's tendency to loquacity. The ally had a remarkable ability to disguise its intoxication as ordinary, as the ground state. And coffee was characterized as a business like rather than frivolous, as a reasonable rather than impulsive. He says, and then this is the more italics used. This is on the ally, so the stuff about like the character of it or whatever. But he says, except I'm slowing down. Ooh, give me more coffee. What? That was weird. Give me more coffee. Else I might have to reconsider. Imagine how bad it is. I've read these books too about like they're called bootleg coffee. Like that was part of the American history and enterprise is like bootleg coffee, even by like the people who started the states, just because I forget what it's like cherry wood mixed with like dandelions. They would sell that as coffee, and it was like just a way to make hell of money easy. I have to go into that, but I learned it trying to learn about dandelions, which I've heard once read is that either at a college, maybe a book, or online at a college, but it was saying that dandelion tea was somehow equivalent to GHB. I was like, really? And I tried to dig up like once or twice, but at the time, there's like, you know, I have my whole plethora of all these other side poison, you know, whatever, medicinal plants, whatever that I'm interested in. But at that time, I was drinking Magnolia, and oh my god, there was one time I had Magnolia. It was so good, and I've done it literally 40 times and never got it that good. But it was this tree. Sorry to get off a tangent, but this tree where they pruned all the leaves, and it was in this courtyard. They pruned all the leaves, so it never got any shade whatsoever. And usually, you know, see some like Mexican magnolia trees or whatever. It's like these big shady, like there's all shade on top of shade on top of it. It never does anything. It tastes kind of good like wood, and I think there's even some worry that it causes cancer too. But whatever, a lot many things do, like cardboard boxes, whatever. But what was I gonna say? The one that got so much sunlight, I remember chopping it up, and this is in the college, guys, so it's proof that I'm a vandal, a ruffian, or whatever. I just go up with like a knife or something, and I cut all the bark off of this one just straight in the courtyard. And dude, the tea was gray colored. I've never had a tea like that. It was fucking gray colored, and it was like really good. Like it felt like benzos that hit quick and like went away in 1 hour. I was like, whoa. And then I've done it so many times after, I never could get it to work again. Not whatsoever. I've had extract in it, all the shit. It's just wondrous how weird it is. I guess it has to do with there's multiple different alkaloids in plants that, you know, some of it barely does shit, and then it can have potential. But yeah, that was a trick. Maybe anybody who's interested in plants, the idea about pruning trees so much that it never gets any sun, and it was fucking so good. Although the one kind of weird part is there was bugs. Oh my god. Okay, this now makes sense. Oh my god. Okay, so I read that actually pill bugs can have, what's it called? Roofies? No. What do they call them? Quaaludes. Pill bugs have quaalude-like chemicals in it to a certain extent. And I remember this bark, I was shaving off, it had bugs like in the bark, and I still drank that shit. And it was amazing. And like I said, where I did try to do it like 40 times, maybe I should look into that. The pill bug infested Magnolia is the best. That's how disgusting it is. It's like, I'll get back to the book. But this is kind of like antithesis to this, what do you call it? I don't know, it's right. And more wild man stuff. But Jonathan Ott, who had these books, Pharmakotheon, all these books about the ayahuasca analogs in the 90s, all this stuff. He had this book, I've never read it. It's called The Filth Eater. The Filth Eater, like Kalakotodl or something. The Filth Eater. And I think it's about eating dung, mushrooms that grow out of dung. But I'm not sure why he calls it that, the Filth Eater, but that's how it sometimes goes. But yeah, this bark, dude, I remember I shaved it, and there was like a tiny like spider web and a pill bug, but I didn't eat the pill bug, but I wonder if the spider web is the chemical from the pill bug. Dude, that's crazy. That's how it only, what? This is crazy. But yeah, I saw that, and I'm like, oh, poor pill bugs. I have a story too. One time, we accidentally smoked a pill bug while smoking weed as teenagers in a closet. And there's all this like dread spiders, or we're trying to bake up weed on this ugly ass carpet, like just disgusting in this closet when we're like 15. And he picked up a dried pill bug and he fucking put it in the pipe. We smoked it accidentally. Disgusting, bro. Disgusting. But I remember it was just like, it was the most harshest, like you try and smoke like a clam or something like that, or like a crustacean that tasted like that. Yeah. A dried crustacean clam. If you smoke that, and that's how harsh it was, and it didn't do anything at that time. But that story about Magnolia and all that, yeah. What was the other thing? How did I even get to this? Oh, yeah, but the thing about dandelion tea, very strange. They'd say it was like comparable to GHB. I'm like, no way. I tried it. Like I said, it's like you go on the detox teas, and it's like the most like benign tea. But it's like, I remember somebody compared to that. I'm like, how would that be? Who knows? So, okay. He said, even though I'm slowing down, give me more coffee, else I might have to reconsider. The history, back to history. It is difficult to separate the history of coffee from that of tea and cocoa and the spice trade. The stories all twine together. The major coffee traders were several East India companies, principally of the English and of the Dutch, of the French and the Danes, the Swedes, the Scots, and the Austrians. All had the East India Company at various times during the mercantile era. But their power was never matched that of the Dutch and English. The role of the East India Companies in European and American history in the 17th and 18th centuries is pivotal and is central to the industrial age that followed. At the end of the 16th century, the Portuguese controlled the world spice trade, having wrested it by finesse and force of the arms from the Venetians, who had controlled it for the preceding 4 centuries. But in 1594, the Portuguese, overplayed by their hand by closing Lipsen to the Dutch and English, the Dutch responded by forming the Dutch East India Company, aiming to open trade directly with the East Indies. They had sent 4 vessels to India, establishing trading posts, returning with loads of paper, cloves, nutmeg, and other spices, and had a controlling share on the market. In 1599, they had doubled the price of pepper. Oh, not pepper. Not paper, pepper. Yes, pepper, cloves, nutmeg. This move, in turn, prompted the English to form their own East India companies to compete with the Dutch. That's weird. They call it East India just because it's the area? Huh? Who knows? We'll tell more of this story in chapter on nutmeg, but in brief, in the numerous frontier wars and acts of piracy, the Dutch East India Company and the English, when they could, took over many of the Portuguese possessions, conquest that made it, in part, because of heavy-handed Portuguese treatment of the natives had predisposed them to ally themselves with any Portuguese enemy. Cutthroat capitalism. It took on a literal meaning. But when the Dutch monopolized trade with Japan, Siam, and the Spice Islands by capturing and torturing to death 10 rival English traders, along with 100 of their employees and families, states' support of these trading companies was so strong that the charter of the Dutch United East India Company, state support of these trading companies was so strong that the charter of these Dutch United East India Companies, in addition to many ensuring them 21-year monopoly, gave the company a right to build forts, to maintain armies, make treaties, wage wars, and coin money. The British East India Company had a similar charter. Rival ships and entire colonies were taken by force of cannon. Trade laws and tariffs were enacted to support and protect the company. It was such trade laws specific enacted to build the profits of the British East India Company that it led to the American Revolution more than 100 years later. The great conservative Malthus, I've never heard this name. He dropped so many freaking names. The great conservative Malthus was an East India man. He joined the East India Company. It was a charter to maximize profits when he'd give up the ministry. Malthus later went to Parliament and was instrumental in enacting the Poor Laws, laws that cut traditional charities given to the poor, and instead force them to enter exceedingly oppressive workhouses. I don't know, I guess it makes sense. It got to do it. I mean, like I said, it's some people, me and Patrick discussed it. It's like somehow, oh, how is Fanta racist or something like that? And I realized the whole sugar trade, all of slavery, it's all freaking is built onto all of society. It's like crazy. Even similar, I was watching this video, I need to watch it again, this thing about how, why is certain parts of the United States so poisoned by mining or something like that? And it was because they had to dig out all the lead to make bullets in World War II, and because they won, they had to add that much lead. It toxified that part of the land. I was like, that video fucked me up so bad yesterday. I was like, and because, you know, I'm kind of into ecology, you know, but I'm just fucking, you know, I'm kind of a dork or whatever, internet dork or whatever. It's not a big thing, but that video screwed me up so bad because they're talking about, sorry to get off course, but how and we discussed this before recently, is about pollution. That pollution, I don't explain the numbers. It's like a human, when it gets exposed to lead, it stores it in the bones, and when it doesn't have suffice amounts of calcium, then it like goes back into the system or something like that, and then on like a child, it's like that, the way the toxicity level, I guess, is like, you know, it goes, what is it, right, asymptotically higher, because of, you know, eventually the child is going to be, you know, exposed to like pre-born or whatever. But it was crazy. I know I was having to doubt some of the numbers because it made no sense, but it was like, you know, science in the 70s, so it's like, but yeah, it was like, I mean, I could be saying wrong, but it was saying, but like, that in a milliliter, or maybe, no, 10 decimeters of blood, you know what I'm saying, like a little drop of blood, it can have 1 or 10 UGs, or whatever, 10 nanograms of lead in it. I'm like, what? Every single drop of blood? It's like the lead, I don't care, it was really wild. It's like, how can the blood drop store that much lead in it? That's fucking crazy. But I guess lead is like so heavy that it's maybe, I don't know, but it's an interesting thing. I'll put it on the link. It's like, what's it called? This Curious Company, and it was called, I loved it. I watched it twice in a row. It was that good. I watched it and I was like, what the? I rewatched it. It is called, and it's very sad. And like, I'm not saying as much as it's interesting, right? It is just super sad. It says, the town of Silent Poison, called Pitcher, Oklahoma, became the most toxic town in America. It was crazy just because of the mining and having to win World War II. What? This is so crazy. Like, sad. So sad. Okay, where we at? Where we at? The conservative mythos. Okay, so he went into Parliament and was instrumental in enacting the poor laws. Okay, my bad. Mathis. Oh no, no. So the law was to cut charities and make them work into the thing. Like I said, this is a very tough subject sometimes, because sometimes people are like so mindlessly like, oh yeah, cultural Marxism. What is it? And I'm very liberal, but whatever. But it's like, it's because it never goes deeper. Nobody always has the most insanely surface level thing. It's like even the layers of Earth, that could be thought of as history in a metaphorical or visionary way. It's just like sometimes people on the political level, they just talk about like the very top dust that's like floating around. It's like okay, so they cut the charities and make them enter exceedingly oppressive workhouses. And the story of tea. And mind you, this guy is super liberal. His story is going to be very washed in that way. But it's it's to be interesting. Like I said, he's a crazy beatnik. Whatever. Not crazy, but I can't describe the beatnik flavor. But I'm not going to right now. But go back to English Times. And those workhouses were really bad. Like they get, they're dangerous, and more or less, if people have nothing else to, they have no other job as possible except doing that, and that would get them their, I don't know, we'll get into it, but yeah. Okay, so the workhouses are a story of tea, but this is and another, I can't do it, it's hard to do it. Wait, why is this playing? Where's the birds coming from? Oh, it finally downloaded? So yeah. It's like coffee and tea and chocolate created a huge demand for sugar, and growing sugar created demand for slaves, a large demand that we shall see. The ally, again, back to coffee. The coffee ally and her shrine, the coffee house, radically altered the English prose style. Writers such as Henry Fielding, Jonathan Swift, and Daniel Defoe, and Lawrence Sterne, their ears already turned to the speech of the coffee house they all frequented, began writing dialogue that differed markedly from the stiltness that had characterized the ever pre-coffee writers like Thomas Nash. They began writing in rhythms and speech of spoken English, the conversational English of the coffee house. It was, after all, respectable. In poetry, coffee went to satire. It says Pope was a coffee man. Oh, damn it, I just thought I was going to say something. I can't remember. Keep going. Okay, the effects. A tendency to repertory and wit. Well, right now, I wish I had some coffee, but we got kratom, which is in the coffee family, or the Rubiaceae family. And it's weird lately. I've always heard people, oh, kratom is an energizer. Fuck no. When I first started kratom, I was like, it felt comparable to morphine or something like that. And then, but sometimes I've had kratom lately where I try it, I'm like, whoa, this is nowhere like the character used to be. It used to like numb your tongue. Now it's just like really bitter and more tea-like, definitely more coffee-like. But it was so weird. I did it for like 5 years. I'm like, kratom never energizes you or shit. And then I finally had some recently. I was like, yeah, I do feel it. It's like, it doesn't feel like, it's not super like comforting, numbing feeling. In fact, it can be like annoying in a way, but more so annoying is like you can't sleep with the damn. And that's why I think people use it for labor in Thailand, but silliness. Yeah, I'll get to that another time, I guess. Okay, So a history back to coffee. During the 18th century, women broke the male monopoly on coffee drinking. They had a radical element to the coffee house, an egalitarianism often written explicitly in the house rules. And no tradesman was expected to stand and give up his chair to a gentleman after all were sitting together, whether there was an empty chair. Parlor coffee drinking, pioneered by the women, aligned itself more with geniality. Since drinking coffee socially was something that geniality and aristocracy did, the middle classes could prove their own respectability and geniality by doing the same. Women's coffee circles were held in private homes, not in public places, because common in England in the early 1700s, there were male jokes about gossipy subjects the women conversed about compared to the serious business and the political talk of the coffee house. But by bringing coffee into the home, the way it was open to complete domestication, which was well established by the mid 18th century, coffee became a breakfast drink and an afternoon drink, and families drank it together. The idea about family life and family harmony, respectable and genteel, all sitting together, crystallized around the center ritual. The English gradually changed the tea. More about that later, but it was the ritual was the same. The coffee at home became a norm in France and the Netherlands. This is a poem or something by Picander S.S. Bach. Oops. Deeper. No, I don't know why I'm doing the fucking dream machine in the background, but I love that thing.